Hello everyone, how's it going? Welcome to Crack a Pack a Day. Every day I'm going to open a booster pack of Magic the Gathering cards and evaluate the contents, choosing one of them to take as if I were taking part in a draft, and this was pack 1, pick 1. After yesterday's Throwback Thursday, we're back to opening Magic Origins, the final core set. Let's open it up and take a look. Our first card is Fetid Imp, a 1/2 imp for 1 and a black. It has flying and the ability to pay black, and it gains Death Touch until the end of the turn. I really liked Fetid Imp at the start of the format. I tend to like cheap creatures with Death Touch because they can hold off creatures that cost far more than they do. But as the format developed, I realised that the 1 power was actually a bit of a letdown. If there was a more powerful control deck in Magic Origins, this would probably be a star player in it, but as it stands, I can't rate this very highly. Fetid Imp isn't going to be my first pick here. Our next card is Smashed to Smithereens, an instant for 1 and a red. Destroy target artifact. Smashed to Smithereens deals 3 damage to that artifact's controller. Like most artifact destruction spells, Smashed to Smithereens is a sideboard card. You're going to want to bring it in games 2 and or 3 depending on how many artifacts your opponent plays. As a sideboard card, I'm not going to be taking Smashed to Smithereens first. Healing Hands, a sorcery for 2 and a white. Target player gains 4 life. Draw a card. For the most part, cards that solely gain life aren't worth playing. A lot of less experienced players consider life gain cards to be more powerful than they actually are. The only time that a life gain card is actually good is in a racing situation, and that tends to happen quite rarely. The fact that you draw a card off of this is nice, but I don't think that's enough to redeem it. Personally, I don't rate Healing Hands very highly, and I won't be taking it first here. Infernal Scarring, an enchantment aura for 1 and a black. It enchants a creature, which gets +2/+0, and has, when this creature dies, draw a card. Like all auras, Infernal Scarring suffers from the weakness that if you destroy the creature out from under it, you've just taken a 2-for-1. It is cheap, and you do get a nice power bonus, but no toughness bonus. The other ability is okay, but at that point you've basically spent 2 cards to draw a card. I don't think Infernal Scarring has a high enough power level to overcome the inherent weakness of auras. As such, I'm not going to be picking it first. Titanic Growth, an instant for 1 and a green. Target creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. Titanic Growth is a reasonable combat trick. It's not the cheapest around, but what you do get is pretty hefty. It's not too difficult to leave 2 mana open and be able to use it in your opponent's turn. At the end of the day, Titanic Growth is a reasonable combat trick, but it doesn't really have the power level to warrant taking it first. I don't think it's going to be my first pick here. Disperse, an instant for 1 and a blue. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Bounce is an ever-present and ever-useful ability in Blue's repertoire. To be able to do it at instant speed, albeit for 2 mana, is pretty good. It's a permanent way of dealing with tokens, as when they return to their owner's hand, they disappear. And if you manage to use it on an opponent's creature that costs 3 or more, then you've gained an advantage. In an aggressive tempo-based format like Magic Origins, Disperse is a pretty good card. In fact, I think it's the best card in the pack so far. Right now, I think it has a reasonable chance of being picked by me. Orchard Spirit, a 2/2 spirit for 2 and a green. It can't be blocked except by creatures with flying or reach. For most intents and purposes, this is a 2/2 flyer for 3, which is a solid but average card. You're never really going to want to cut it from your decks, but conversely, it doesn't really have the power level required of a first pick. I don't think I'm going to be taking it first. Send to Sleep, an instant for 1 and a blue. Tap up to 2 target creatures. If you have Spell Mastery, they don't untap during their controller's next untap steps. I'm not the biggest fan of Send to Sleep. It's very cheap, but what you get isn't that great. It's almost not worth using a card on it. If you could always guarantee Spell Mastery, then it'd be a good card. So I guess what I'm saying is the power level of this card is very dependent on how many other instants and sorceries you include in your deck. As it is, I can't really see taking this first. Leaf Gilder, a 2/1 elf druid for 1 and a green. You can tap it to add green to your mana pool. A 2/1 for 2 is a little unexciting, but still playable. The fact that you can tap it to add green to your mana pool is pretty good though. You're never going to be disappointed to see it in your opening hand, because if you cast it on turn 2, then on turn 3 you're either attacking for 2 or you're casting a 4-drop. Both pretty good scenarios. Later in the game, it's a 2/1 for 2. It's not bad, it's not great, but you can call it pretty average. But the fact that it has 2 power on turn 2 makes it very useful. Being honest, I think Leaf Gilder is the best card in the pack so far, and might well be my first pick here. Up next, Taupen Freeblade, a 2/2 human soldier for 1 and a white. It has Vigilance and Renown 1. Taupen Freeblade is one of the best commons in Magic Origins. It's a 2/2 for 2 with a lot of upside. If you cast it on turn 2, then attack on turn 3, you've also got a 3/3 blocker at that point, which is going to stop a number of your opponent's early drops. Its power tapers off a little in the late game, but it's still a 2/2 for 2, which isn't a bad card. All in all, Taupen Freeblade is easily the best card in the pack so far. Our first uncommon is Sky Snare Spider, a 6/6 spider for 4 green. It has Vigilance and Reach. A 6/6 for 6 with Vigilance and Reach is an extremely efficient card. It scores perfectly on the vanilla test and has 2 abilities to boot. It's great on offense and great on defense, being able to block almost any creature in the set. The main downside of Sky Snare Spider is simply the fact that it's a 6-drop. It's entirely possible that you might be dead before you get to cast it. The double green in the casting cost has to be taken into consideration too. You can't have too many cards with double mana symbols in multiple colours. Sky Snare Spider is an extremely strong card, let down only by the fact that it takes so long to get into play. It's definitely worthy of consideration as the first pick. Shadows of the Past, an enchantment for 1 and a black. Whenever a creature dies, scry 1. It also has the activated ability, pay 4 and a black. Each opponent loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life. Activate this ability only if there are 4 or more creature cards in your graveyard. The main hit against Shadows of the Past is that it doesn't directly affect the board when you cast it. It's not a creature, so it can't attack or block, and it doesn't deal damage or destroy any creatures. If the game goes long, Shadows of the Past can give you inevitability between scrying whenever creatures die and, once you've got 4 or more creatures in your graveyard, being able to drain 2 life for every 5 mana you have. The problem is, Magic Origins is a very aggressive format. Often, the games won't go long. As a result, I can't really consider taking this first. Bounding Krasis, a 3/3 fish lizard for 1 green. It has Flash, and when it enters the battlefield, you may tap or untap target creature. A 3/3 for 3 scores perfectly on the vanilla test, and the fact that it has 2 abilities on top just adds to its power. The downside is that you've got to have 2 colours to cast it, and, theoretically, taking it pack 1 pick 1 locks you into those colours far earlier than you'd like to. It's a very solid card, but I don't think the power level's there to consider taking it pack 1 pick 1. Our rare is Exquisite Firecraft, a sorcery for 1 red. It deals 4 damage to target creature or player. If you have spell mastery, it can't be countered by spells or abilities. Exquisite Firecraft is a reasonably efficient burn spell, dealing 4 damage to any target for 3 mana. It is a sorcery, which is a little bit of a hit against it, but 4 damage is an awful lot. It can kill a large number of creatures in the set, or even finish your opponent off if necessary. I don't think the spell mastery is worth taking into consideration. You're going to want to play a 4 damage burn spell regardless. It'll just be a nice upside sometimes. I think Exquisite Firecraft is a very good removal spell that also deals damage to your opponent's face, which makes it a good contender for the top pick in this pack. We also have a checklist card and a Thopter token. Well, let's have a review of our pack. And here's our pack in all its glory. To me, I think the top pick in this pack is Exquisite Firecraft. It's a strong removal spell that, amongst other things, kills every single creature in the pack except for the Sky Snare Spider. Honourable mentions must go to the Token Freeblade, the Sky Snare Spider, and the Leaf Gilder, but I think the Exquisite Firecraft just edges them out. And that's all we've got time for today. If you disagree with my choice, then please let me know in the comments below, on Facebook, or on Twitter. Have a good day now.